Black Key Books presents Immortal's Ruin, a science fiction audiobook adventure. The Rakers Saga, Book 2. Written by A.R. Knight. Chapter 1. Summer Fling. Civilization's latest killer lived in a split level on the suburb's bleeding edge. A single chimney butting into bluebird sky, a yard done up with the minimum in summer decor. A single car, at least a decade old, sat in the driveway. Fade was, as usual, underwhelmed. "Another one?" Fade asked the woman sitting across from him, the pair taking the corner restaurant's patio for an early afternoon date. "When do we get to go after the big guys?" "Saving the world is banal already." Eve's question came with a smirk. She'd seen this all before, 1,000 times. For Fade, this would be the 10th takedown as a Raker. And yeah, the sparks weren't exactly flying. Getting set up by a godlike being to protect humanity from destruction seemed like it'd mean more excitement. But Fade was breaking fewer knees and ducking fewer fists than he used to. Because, apparently, saving the world mostly meant managing accounts, messing up meetings, and occasionally putting the target in front of proper authorities before anything bad could happen. That was the plan here, too, though Fade and Eve had yet to get the feds involved. Probably wouldn't either, given that the target had deep connections with the state. "Don't do that," Eve said, glancing up from her phone, eyes hidden behind big sunglasses. A wide-brim hat completed the tourist ensemble, replete with shawl, flowing blouse, and shorts. Fade matched, his flower print button-up bleeding into the creamiest of white pants. All too tight for a firearm, a blade, or a bomb. Not that Rakers tended towards the big booms. Drew a little too much noticed, tended to destabilize as much as set things straight, even if they were fun. "Do what?" "You're staring at him again." "Your eyes don't have lasers, Fade." "Gabbers said I could get that if I wanted." Sure, the half-machine, half-quid creature protecting its marine species from self-immolation had made the remark in jest, but Fade detected a little truth in its bubbly offer. Superheroes were all the rage in popular media, and with some alien tech, Fade could just about— "You start blasting our targets apart, we're going to attract all the wrong attention," Eve said. "Now focus. What's our guy up to?" She didn't look up from her phone as she spoke, trusting Fade to fulfill his sidekick obligations, which, naturally, he did, because Fade wasn't some moron plucked off the street. He was a savvy fixer, a skilled street fighter, a cool cucumber, who just happened to be keeping the universe from sliding off the rails. "He's waiting for the bus," Fade said, reaching and taking a sip from an amber iced tea. Their table, lofted on a stylish second-story restaurant, overlooked the street and tried to gild its ambiance with light music and bright umbrellas. The tactic might have worked had Fade been indulging the margarita special on the menu. Earl Grey, not so much. "Why's he taking the bus when he drove here?" Eve asked. "A great question." The transport in question rumbled up to the stop, their charge joining the line and walking on. "Heading to the conference center." Eve flicked her eyes up. "Anything going on there today?" "Tech Expo, headlined by our favorite company." Eve cocked her head. "What's that?" "You ought to remember. Her dad almost killed you." She was the type, Ellsworth had said not long before Veronica Pline's father had the mobster riddled with bullets. A survivor, a killer, one to be feared. Actual tattoos wouldn't work for Veronica's image, but she wrote them every day along the next line in her journal. The little book, tucked in her nightstand's top drawer, would give any sleuth the impression Veronica had long since left sanity behind. She quirked a smile at the thought, one that prompted a hush from the stylist to keep herself still. Veronica would be in the chair a while yet, getting done up for the lights, cameras, and curious crowds, wondering what a college freshman was doing headlining a conference for bleeding-edge technology. They would learn. Just as the rest of her dad's company had over the last few months, as one by one Veronica twisted knives, pulled chairs, and gutted their positions. Sometimes metaphorically, sometimes literally. Her eyes flicked left to the shadow hanging just outside the ready room. Lode had tuned down his outfit, swapped the cowboy hat and six-shooters for a suit and a clean shave. He'd grumbled, but revenge and power were a peanut butter chocolate combo that couldn't be resisted. Veronica knew because she nursed the same addiction. What they were going to present today, what they were going to show the world, was a key. A gate to a place that shouldn't exist, one her dad wanted kept secret, and one Veronica was going to open wide, was going to monetize, was going to use to find her father or destroy the things that had taken him. "You're ready, Miss Pline," the stylist said, twisting Veronica around so she could see herself in the mirror. "Left it loose like you asked." Her dark hair streamed past her shoulders, over the blouse soon to be hidden by a blazer. Pants beneath, fashioned to look professional while hiding pockets in all the right places. Knives, a snub-nosed pistol, and other gadgets all devised and trained by some very, very expensive coaches. "Great," Veronica said, standing up. "How are we looking for time?" 10 minutes, the cowboy replied from outside the room. "Filling up out there." "Better be." Veronica slipped on the blazer, charcoal gray, and went to the narrow hall bustling with people doing just what she already had. "Are you ready?" "Feel like we've been setting this up for a lifetime." "Let's pull this trigger." The pistol shot. The bullet hit her. Pain flashed, flared, racked, and Jaycee couldn't find her breath. The hotel room wavered, shadows pressing in around the edges. The man, Lode, stood in the doorway with that cowboy hat. Ridiculous, but in that moment the only thing Jaycee could feel was, "You okay?" Ashley shook Jaycee, hand on her shoulder. "Come back. You're not there. It's over." The school cafeteria's bustle blotted away the room, the blood. Reheated chicken tenders overrode the stinging scent of pistol shot, and honey mustard reclaimed its prime position in her mouth over her own blood's iron tang. "I'm back," Jaycee said, but she didn't pull away from her friend's side, instead shuddering and staring across the crowded room at nothing, not even the posters announcing winter dance and the football team's impending playoff game. What triggered it this time? "Let me know, and I'll watch for it." Jaycee scrambled her mind, tried to find something plausible, centered on the song leaking from some nearby kid's phone, an older pop jingle. "That was playing right before it happened," Jaycee said, and Ashley shot an ask to the kid, demanding a change in tune. The boy seemed confused, but in the manner of introverts everywhere, elected to dodge conflict and pushed his phone to the next song with a shrug. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Jaycee. Not your fault. Can we go?" "Obviously." A few words bought Jaycee reprieve. Assault. A grubby man with a leer. Nobody wanted to ask more than that. Nobody needed to. She'd found the tale after the memories started bleeding back at bad times. During tests, at parties, in the lunch line, the cowboy, the pistol, the pain. That Fate and Thalia insisted Jaycee go back, even after all this, was becoming a joke. Her grades were taking hits. Homework an afterthought when aliens and supernatural awesomeness lingered so close. Who cared about an essay on Gettysburg or the inner workings of a computer program when the forces that'd determine real progress lay behind a badge? The concern in her friend's face, the way she shepherded Jaycee to their next class that afternoon, was coarse, sickening, in the squeamish way getting thanked for a job you didn't do tended to eat away. This wasn't going to work. This setup. Jaycee had been a student, had been a normal person, excited for what came next. She'd seen it now, and it wasn't college admissions or a career. This wasn't her life anymore. "Sorry," Jaycee said, scooting back, slipping her pack over her shoulder. I'm just not feeling well anymore. I'll see you tomorrow." That, if the plan Jaycee was building with every step worked, she'd never see her friend again. Didn't make Jaycee pause in the least. Even Fade failed to follow the bus through the urban throng. Detroit in the summer thrummed, and Fade tacked it onto the list of vacation destinations. Jaycee would like it here, and it wouldn't blow apart his budget. What might, though, was the price he and Eve kept paying to get around. Their driver did his level best to make up ground, zipping through yellow lights and dodging around pedestrians in crosswalks, with enough reckless verve to make Eve wince and Fade chuckle. "You find this funny?" Eve asked as the conference center came into view. "We're risking lives here." "The man's a professional." The driver nodded, catching Fade's eyes in the rearview mirror. Eve took her trademark deep breath, the judgment finding nowhere to land. If this had been Fade's first time out with Eve, the disapproval might have hit harder. Then, he'd cared about making a positive impression, doing things the right way, squaring the Raker circle. Since he'd realized Eve played the game according to her rules, but those didn't match the big boss's guidelines. All the gardener wanted was a glide path to enlightenment. That loose net gave Fade all the room he could ever want. They slipped out of the car onto a packed sidewalk, buildings serving to cast shadows all around them. Music thumped, and Fade realized the target was a keynote reveal. One hinted to come with a first crack at some new devices. The bleeding edge was present and ready to receive. "Any guesses?" Eve said, her big hat causing problems as they found themselves pushed in with an advancing crowd. 10 minutes till the hour. "We don't have tickets." "Oh no? You mean you didn't get them already?" Fade tossed back, before nudging Eve out of the traffic and against a temporary metal railing blocking off a side drive. "Doesn't matter. We don't need to get inside." "We don't?" Take it from a man who's helped plot a slew of secret meetings. Conference centers have too many cameras, too much security. If this guy's planning to unleash chaos, it'll be outside. "You mean, like now? With a crush of people?" Fade ran the logic. Their suspect would have beat them here by 5 or 10 minutes. Enough time to drop a backpack bomb, maybe. But that was too sloppy. Too meaningless. "Think bigger," Fade said, leaning against the railing. "We wouldn't be here for a bomb blast. He'll want a statement, something with ripple effects. Look at you, learning things. There's a reason I'm not dead yet." Eve winced, but Fade let the words settle while he ran a long look over the crowd. There had to be something more here than tech heads grabbing their new gadgets. Some reason this spot, this moment. Unless... "He's not going to blow it," Eve said as Fade landed on the same conclusion. Fade pulled out his phone, popped up an app stuffed with viral video moments, memes and messages meant to shock, awe, and entertain. Sure enough, flipping to the newest trends, Fade found their man. Not his face, obviously, but a camera pan, rolling over the crowd while a voice intoned a demand. Donations now, to keep the people in the video alive. $1 a life, and the gravel voice, modulated and mixed, demanded at least 20,000, or else everything went boom. That the man wasn't going to get his mark within the few minutes ticking down on the screen was obvious. Fade counted more laughing emojis and firework graphics than dollar signs. "We're wrong," Fade said, that familiar ice finding home in his gut. He's going to be forced into it. Forced? Fade flashed Eve the screen, and she frowned. Still learning the ways of modern media, was she? No time to explain social media's all-or-nothing pressure, though. Glancing back at the screen, Fade traced the camera's perspective. The left-to-right march of bodies, a passing car interrupting the feed for a second. "Across the street to the right," Fade said, launching into the crowd. As he pushed through, new ripples coated the conversations around him. More than one other person looking at the same app, seeing the same video, coming to the same awful realization. Someone would tell the police, if they didn't already know, but that'd be too late. Instead, Fade and Eve, vigilantes for a higher power, dipped around another bus and into the slow-moving traffic. Tapping on hoods and ducking around fenders, Fade snuck every look he could spare along the avenue to his right. The cross street held a stadium district's mix of bars, restaurants, and fan service shops. People milled around those too. But one stood still, leaning against a building with his phone raised up near his face. Their mark had traded his business shirt for a hoodie en route, an outfit that made an odd pairing with slacks, but kept the man's face shrouded. "1 minute," Eve said as they hit the sidewalk. "We've got to move." "Don't get stressed. He's right there." Fade nodded at the man, picked up the pace. Slipping through crowds was as second nature as breathing, and Fade hit the target with 40 seconds to spare. He came up from the side, ignoring the wind-swept trash and leaves around his feet, and snatched the phone from the man's hand. A glance confirmed the phone supplied the camera feed, but the wind streak stopped at 1. When Fade, handing the phone back to Eve, looked at its owner, he didn't see the expected face of the agent, the traitor, the risk to humanity. Instead, he saw someone with more wrinkles, mouth twitching as questions came and went, tears and snot bleeding from their eyes and nose. "Where is it?" Fade snapped, the counter ticking below 30 seconds. "It's the price," the man stammered, doing the bit from every damn show and movie Fade had ever seen. "My family lives, they don't." The tremulous mouth found a shaky smile. "Sins of the father." "Cut that crap." Eve was asking something the suspect ignored, his hand reaching out and tugging down the zippered front. You learn to expect certain things, twists taking a bad situation worse. Even so, Fade had yet to come face to face with a package tied tight around a man's chest, beeping and blinking, the counter below 20. No time to disarm, even if Fade knew how. Thalia might. Instead, he'd just die. "Down!" Fade shouted, and made to tackle the man, to put his body in between the bulky bomb. Would his guts and bones do anything to deflect the blast, like a soldier diving on a grenade? He could only hope, except Fade didn't fall forward, didn't get his hands on the bomb. Instead, Eve yanked him back, wrapped Fade in a hug, and Detroit ceased to be. Veronica's phone beeped on her way to the stage. Lode walked alongside, gruff and quiet until the noise sounded. With it, the man grinned. "They were there," Lode said, his burnt charcoal voice cutting through the pulsing pump-up music. "But they failed." "In every way that mattered. Our man says they vanished before the blast." "Recorded?" "Clear as day." Veronica nodded. "Good work. Let's use it." "Already told him." Now Veronica stopped, the stage's white light bleeding into the backstage mess of cables, production assistants, and cue cards. She held her eyes firm, set her mouth in a slight frown, and threw all the ice she could into her voice, just like her dad had taught her. "You do nothing without my permission, Lode." The cowboy didn't bother returning anything more than a hangdog grin. "Partners, Veronica. That's all we are until I get mine. Until we get ours. You need me for that, more than I need you. Don't forget it." Lode spat to the side, the glob splattering on the floor. Some poor intern noticed as she walked past, turned a bit green, but wisely held her silence. Don't you forget, Lode said, that voice going even lower. I'm the deadliest man on this planet. You want me on your side, Peach, so play nice. That I'll never do. But she cut the words with a smile, the same that had given Veronica all she wanted most of her life. She kept it on all the way to the stage, even as the first whispers spread of a disaster. This was her moment, and Veronica Pline would not waste it. A few dozen dead, a few hundred injured. Statistics fading into the background as Thalia watched the large TV in her uncle's living room. Oscar's sprawling house in Oakland's East Side had a lived-in luxury, one often hidden by the groups of armed men and women milling about, wandering through or prepping for their next assignment. Thalia qualified as the first of those, having returned a couple days earlier from light VIP escort duty. Oscar had invited her over for dinner, a request Thalia accepted because there wasn't saying no, not to an invitation that tended to mean more work, and Thalia had debts left to pay. The source of those debts splashed up on the screen again. Fade, with Eve's arm on his shoulder, was labeled an unknown. He'd been accosting the bomber before the blast went off, and the newscast assumed Fade had been blown to atoms. But that's not true, is it? Oscar, sitting on a massive chocolate-brown sectional, said. His various goons, killers, and mercenaries turned confused looks his way, their drinks sloshing with the turn. Thalia, our boy Fade's not dead, is he? Number. Not likely. He was close to the bomb, Thalia said, her tongue getting thick. She could lie 1,000 times to 1,000 people, save Oscar. The man who'd raised her, gave her the talents to take lives and save them, wrenched honesty into its place. I don't know. But you do. There's more than rumors, Thalia, Oscar said, keeping his voice louder than it should have been, a gruff announcement to his people. World's not what we thought it was, right? Strange things out there? Thalia responded by taking the whiskey, the rocks, and downing it in a single gulp. Too smooth for her taste, anyway, Oscar's love of top shelf making his drinks boring. Liquor tasted better with a little gutter in it. Spit it out, Uncle. Nah, not yet. The greaseball of a man sent a glittering grin. His teeth whitened so many chemicals around the room. Consider this a taste for all of you. There's action coming. Good gigs, high pay, so stick around and you won't go hungry working for me. Oscar gave the pitch a beat to settle in before bidding them all out. A tough ask, giving its size, tall ceilings, and lack of doors. The mercenaries tried their best, shuffling out to adjoining rooms. One turned up the music from low jazz lounge to pulsing bass, enough to fuzz out easy eavesdropping. Oscar patted the cushion next to him, and Thalia took the seat. She ran her hands along her jeans as she met the cushion, smoothing out the 3 knives and snub-nosed pistol along her thighs. Can't help notice you're not all that surprised, Thalia said, still staring at the TV. Whispers is all. Action underway, nothing huge. That's not huge? Real monsters could have killed thousands right there. They didn't want a big body count, not the objective. Oscar turned fast from the showy head honcho to the sharp boss of a damn good, if little known, security firm. Thalia kept forgetting that. My point, they got what they really wanted, Oscar said, frowning when the TV didn't magically comply. Fade and that woman. Right there, but not among the dead. We don't know that. We do. It's all over the wires already. People trying to figure out who they are, what they were trying to do. Oscar poked Thalia in the shoulder. You want to go find him? Actually, knowing the time, Thalia would do better to find Jaycee. Even if Fade skated away from that bomb clean, Jaycee probably wouldn't see her dad tonight. Thalia could pick up dinner, they could choose a movie, and... What did it say about her that Thalia's best friend, really, was her former partner's daughter? Perhaps that this business didn't allow much in the way of chummy relationships. "Can't let you, though," Oscar continued, answering his own question. "Before a few hours ago, wasn't many jobs out there looking for your talents. Now, I got one." "What is it?" "Our favorite asshole, Navarro, wants to beef up his detail." Thalia threw a curse at Navarro's name. "Send someone else!" "Nope. He wants you. Only you." Again Oscar lit up that 1,000-watt grin. Thalia shook her head, then stopped. Sighed instead. "He doesn't want protection, does he?" Thalia asked. "Ask him yourself. He's been trying to pay for your skills since the Pline attack. I've been saying no, but now you're free, and he keeps meeting my asking price." "Pawning off your own niece feel nice?" Oscar's delight vanished behind narrowed eyes. "That prick touches you, makes the wrong suggestion. You have my express permission to take him on a one-way trip to the dirt. Number. Your guess and my guess are the same. He wants what you know, and he'll pay to get it. Then what changed? Why make the move now?" "Because that," Oscar pointed to the screen, "is opportunity. Your boy Fade's going to have everyone hunting for him, me included. Navarro might know something else, might have a lead. You're going to get me that intel and get paid to boot. Never find a better deal." "I can think of a couple." "Then pitch me when this one wraps." 50 grand a week, Thalia. Starts tomorrow. The details are in your inbox." Oscar raised a hand, snapped the fingers. The music cut off, and Oscar ordered the TV changed to a baseball game. The cue for Thalia to leave. Tomorrow. Well, at least that meant she could see Jaycee. Unfortunately, Thalia wouldn't be recommending any movies. Tonight they'd be talking shop. Chapter 2. Chit-Chat Revolution. Progress ought to come in leaps. Veronica started with that line and closed with the same sentiment, the idea that humanity was, now, on the precipice of something far greater than another published paper, another bump in computer memory or processor speed. Time to break the incremental and embrace the epical. She drew little applause, a lot of confusion. The audience wasn't paying much attention, phones blinking throughout the dark auditorium as her attendees confirmed their loved ones were safe. That a similar bomb wouldn't be detonating here. "I don't care," Veronica, after, told the aide, one of her father's innumerable assistants. The man had responded to the speech's tepid reception with crowd-directed insults and Veronica-fed compliments in equal measure, earning his salary. The point wasn't for them to understand today, but to realize tomorrow. That the aide, concerned more with handing Veronica coffee than the plight of society, didn't understand wasn't high on Veronica's list of concerns. Lode and his urging that Veronica needed to move fast was. The gardener would notice, eventually, that the humans weren't trundling along on its prescribed path. The creature would take action, and that action could range from... "Stop!" Veronica waved off Lode's dire, gravelly dooms as the cowboy replaced the aide, who disappeared to fetch her car as they continued through the hotel towards the San Francisco street outside. "I understand your urgency, I do, but this won't work if we're panicked." "You think I don't get politicians? The only thing you get are targets, Lode." The man chuckled, the layered concern dissipating. If only Veronica's own stress could fade so fast. "Guess you've done what you said you would," Lode replied eventually. "Give you that much." As she'd given Lode a new identity, clothes, and a place to live, albeit one monitored by zero-point agents, Veronica figured Lode could give her quite a bit more, but she said nothing. Instead, she pulled her own phone from her blazer's pocket. Tapped into the contacts, and amid a slew of former high school friends, names christened with emojis and sepia-toned memories, Veronica scrolled to one who, with neither of those things, "Senator," Veronica said, following Lode through the doors into the cool air, the sounds of traffic. "I take it you've seen the pictures?" A tired voice, one that might have had iron back in the day but was brittle now, came back. "I have." A little indignation there, the old blood wanting to castigate the young girl who'd dared call her direct number, her personal number, a set of digits the senator had given to Veronica's father when he held the keys to true power. "I can tell you what's behind it," Veronica said. "No, not the bomb. That's immaterial. I'm talking the real secret, the real threat." "Those two people?" "Hardly people, Senator. They're closer to gods, and right now, they're not on your side." Another afternoon, another empty house. Jaycee shrugged off her backpack and listened to distant highway traffic, sniffed the same breezy air, and saw everything in the same place she'd left it that morning. When her father had been home, had been promising her they'd go out for dinner tonight. There'd been a time those promises had been kept, a time Jaycee believed them, but that had been when she was 5 years old. Now she just shook her head, went to the fridge, and pulled out a bag of baby carrots to munch on. A crappy snack, but since Fade depended on Jaycee to do the grocery shopping, and she'd had homework. "Am I an asshole blaming my dad?" Jaycee asked the hanging picture on the wall, showing her mother, her father, and Jaycee herself chunky with baby fat. "He's supposed to be saving the world." But come on, this wasn't about rational thought. This was about a crunchy carrot and feeling lonely. The drive she'd built in school that day, to go out and seek a better destiny, began its daily dwindling against the comparative comforts of social media surfing, a movie, and ordering pizza on her dad's credit card. The one funded by an alien deity with an infinite bank account. Jaycee could head upstairs right now, change, and go for a run, then get that pepperoni pie, with banana peppers always, and check the next flick off her list. 90s comedies this month, part of a calendar she and Thalia had devised to keep Jaycee sane while her dad punched evildoers in the mouth. Or something. The dire undertones therein met their match when Jaycee's phone buzzed. She picked it up from the table, teeth crunching through a carrot, and saw Thalia's name. "Need a couch, buddy?" Jaycee asked. "Clueless is next. You said it was good?" "A classic," Thalia replied, a thrum in the background suggesting the call came from a car. "But I'm thinking of something different." "Ice cream? A theater? Did Oscar give you basketball tickets again?" "I wish. Get yourself ready. I'll be there in 20. "Ready for what?" "A job." Fade promised himself that if the flip to the Grove and its chill white stone towers ever grew old, he'd quit the game. He and Eve, the latter serving as a nice cushion, tumbled into Earth's small entry room. Faint heat lingered on Fade's face, a sign of what he'd just dodged. "Move!" Eve grunted beneath him, and Fade rolled to the side onto more white stone, untarnished thanks to some sealant beyond, in all likelihood Fade's ability to comprehend. "Thank you." "Pretty sure I should be thanking you." Fade stood, confirmed the room hadn't changed. No windows, just plain white stone walls and a single doorway. Asylum decor, one the perfect size for humans, though the Grove was a species menagerie, a crafted palace for the chosen saviors. "You can thank me by not getting us killed," Eve said, looking herself over for singed spots. "I'm not trying to do that. The man had a bomb beneath his sweater." Anticipate, Fade. "Hey, same goes for you," Fade snapped back, the day's watch, pursuit, and near death doing a fine job curdling his initial adrenaline. "You're the mentor here." Eve didn't take the bait, just walked past Fade and out the door. Fade, throwing a quizzical and unnoticed look after her, followed. Their room opened onto a circular ring around a tall, open space. Different doors spread across the circle, with shifting heights, widths, and modes of operation. Theirs had a simple panel to push. Fade saw one with what looked like a pulley system, another with a big round button on the floor at its entry. It took all kinds to keep life in motion. "We need to talk to the audience," Eve said, putting her hands on the stone railing's flat top. "This wasn't just a bombing." "Oh, you think?" Eve's eyes flashed back Fade's way, warned this wasn't time for his usual wise-ass remarks. Her face, hit by the placid blue-white light flowing in from above, caught different, a little worry on thin lips, hard eyes shaded with real concern. Yet Eve had an almost artificial look, one Fade was beginning to take on too, skin so smooth it seemed waxed. The grove wasn't just suffused with air, not every species cared about oxygen, but came with special, tiny tech that gave Fade not what he needed to live, but what he needed to thrive. Wrinkles, gray hairs, and any hidden maladies deep in Fade's guts would find themselves excised. His DNA returned to perfect form. Eve was ancient, and her utter lack of fashion sense proved it. Fade wouldn't make those mistakes, but he couldn't help but stare at the evidence of immaculate, impossible health standing before him. "What?" Eve asked. "Sorry, distracted," Fade replied. "This whole place gets to me sometimes." "That won't stop." Eve twitched a smile. "Probably good that it doesn't either. You wouldn't be the first Raker to fall in love with it." "In love? The feel. It's a rush, isn't it? All your troubles melting away, the bad knee, the headache, the cold sore near his tongue, restored to perfection." Yeah, Fade could see how that'd be a tough thing to let go, even for a minute. Eve didn't wait for an answer, instead flipping herself over the side and dropping. Fade, whistling an old tune, followed. The fall would be fast, would end with a catch, and again he'd be standing next to Eve and her all-too-smooth self. She'd saved his life. Again. Maybe something like that could thaw even his old heart. Thalia brought tacos, the perfect side dish for a plot. Any thoughts of small talk vanished when Jaycee opened the front door of the demure Oakland house with a look sitting somewhere between fury and fear. Tonight wouldn't be banter about boys, colleges, and the idiots on social media. "I'm done with it," Jaycee said, throwing a scornful look at the backpack lumped, contents still inside, near the door. Thalia shook out of her jacket, ignoring the weight from several weapons very much out of step with local laws, and tried to compose a diplomatic response. "Don't even try," Jaycee said, bringing her arms into a fierce fold, though not before taking the bag and its attendant tacos. "I see that look. It's the stern parent guise you and Fade put on all the time. Know who doesn't do that? Eve. She treats me like an equal. Eve's a few hundred years old, Jaycee. Eve's probably thrilled society doesn't want to stick her in the kitchen anymore." "Don't knock her." Jaycee seemed to question her own words, what she wanted from them, and instead turned to the bag. "How many did you get? Any chorizo?" "Depends." Thalia snatched the bag back, led them both into a kitchen too clean for Fade. "You going to decide I'm not your enemy?" "Depends on whether there's chorizo in that bag." There was, and when Thalia pulled out the guacamole, Jaycee's fire subsided further still. For a moment, fear and anger at Fade's antics vanished beneath the hard taco shells and dripping sauces. "You think he's still alive?" Jaycee said as she licked her fingers, finishing the last of her meal. "You wouldn't be like this otherwise." "You've seen the pictures?" "All over. Every idiot online is trying to guess who my dad is and what they were doing." "Welcome to modern life." Thalia leaned back in the chair, threw an arm over the back, and gave Jaycee a back-to-business stare. "So you're done with school? Joining the army or something?" "Funny. You know what I want." "No, I don't. That's why I'm asking. I want back. To the Grove. To be a part of that." "What? Doing what your dad's doing?" "Taking on dangerous people without knowing why, all at the whim of some strange creature that belongs in a late-night cable special? Seems more fun than another pop quiz and filling out another college admission application. Until the bullets start." Thalia winced as she said that. She hadn't meant to take the conversation that way, at least not so fast. But plans with Jaycee tended to fall apart when protectiveness came into play. She'd wanted to come here, get a feel from Jaycee on her dad's location, so they could twist him into opening up the Grove. Give Thalia a chance at a badge, or maybe a subtle feed to her uncle and the attendant profiting from disaster that was his bread and proverbial butter. Instead, she saw a high school girl who'd spent too many nights without her dad. Too many years without her mother. "I know," Jaycee muttered, eyes flicking to her hands beneath the table. "It's all I see these days. I'll be walking, right? And there's a shadow, and it's that damn cowboy hat. Or I hear a noise at night and have to fight the urge to hide under the bed, like I'm 5. And you want to get closer to it?" "Running away hasn't helped, Thalia. Fade tried to get me to do therapy, but you know what happens when you try and tell someone a time-warped cowboy blasted your chest with a pistol. Maybe stick to the gunshot wound and leave out the rest. Not interested. The cure isn't talking to somebody on a couch. It's getting in there, finding a purpose and acting on it. Fade's not giving me that, and school sure as hell isn't, so I need something new. There's only 2 Rakers, not a Raker. I'll find something else to do there. Something important. I'm sure there's..." Jaycee trailed off, shook her head. "There has to be something else. I can't do this. Can't do this ordinary bullshit anymore. I know." "What?" Thalia slashed a slight smile. "Like I said on the phone, I'm not here just for tacos, Jaycee. Though I wouldn't have minded a little high school drama. Gives a good rest from my life, you know." Jaycee snorted. "Glad I could oblige." "You did. But I think you're right. Not your fault, but the ordinary life's been pulled away from you. Time to make something new of yourself, something better." "What is this, a pep talk?" "A pitch. Fade's going to come back. And when he does, we're going to ambush him." "Say that again, because it sounds like you're talking about attacking my dad?" "Not attacking. Persuading. You want to get to the Grove. I want a person on the inside." Thalia spilled a little more. The lucrative job protecting Navarro, though she left the man's name out of it. The business end of knowing who the Rakers were gunning for at any moment. "Exploiting civilization's decline for profit is pretty cold," Jaycee said at the end. "I'm a kid, and even I can see that. Not just for profit, for our survival. Unless you think hanging around a bunch of aliens in the Grove's going to pay this mortgage and put food on your table." "They have food in the Grove." "What, you're going to live there? Sleep there? Take a shower with some squid creature from half a galaxy away? Gross. But you get the point. What my uncle has here, it will set us up for life, without ever seeing another bullet fired our way again. Doesn't help my dad." Thalia let her grin grow wider. "But Jaycee, it does. Fade won't need to do this himself. We let the right people in, and my uncle knows the right people, and these problems get solved without Fade ever having to take a punch. You're going to subcontract saving the planet? I'm going to keep us all alive, Jaycee. Are you game?" The blankets lay on the cream couch. Thai takeout sprawled on the coffee table. The noodles had made a mess, but someone would be by in the morning to clean it up. Veronica took in the soy smell as she went to the glass door, flipped the lock. The scent reminded her of home. Her old home, anyway. The one she'd lived at, held her own parties, and handled on her own with the cursory supervision of her parents' security guards. They were gone now, too, replaced with faceless, zero-point professionals. Apparently, Veronica Pline was a real target now. She pulled up her phone, stepping onto a balcony suffused with Oakland's city noise. Lights sprawled down the hill towards the bay, and across it, San Francisco's endless shimmer. A sweater Cashmere made for a good companion, and she pulled it tight. The fat railing offered ample room for glasses, should Veronica wish for any. A smile there. 18, and yet Veronica could have any alcohol, any drugs she wished found and delivered right to her. How many of her classmates would give anything for that? Her phone reminded her. Apps lit up the home screen with questions, open thoughts, and pictures she'd once have scrolled through, liked, and trashed with winking delight. Her friends, still locked in that old life, were doing that just now. Easy, just for a little bit, to pop in for a swipe or two, a tap or three. Smiling friends from a party last weekend, a guy Veronica had once liked getting, at last, his first beater to drive around town, and a Pole thrashing the cafeteria's new cookie selection as woefully lacking in snickerdoodle. She gave her thumbs up to them all. Lacking snickerdoodle was definitely a crime, and almost tore herself away when a fresh message popped up. "You're alive?" The chat came from a casual friend, a girl Veronica had shared classes with, and, towards the end, a long group project on the pyramids. Veronica's answer came quick, fingers tapping the keys according to what her public relations team had told her. "Nothing was settled yet. Don't start rumors. Keep everyone calm." "You didn't see my talk?" That one of her high school classmates hadn't been watching an investor conference couldn't be that surprising, but Veronica found a twitching nerve there anyway. Her actions, no matter high profile, were beyond her former milieu. "What talk?" "Everyone saying you're gone." "Sorry about your dad, BTW. Still here. Still processing. I know we weren't close, but hey, if you need anything..." "Need anything?" Veronica glanced left, right, along the lines of the large house. A drive and a gate, monitored at all hours by 0 point. Assistants ready to get anything she wanted. Hell, a monstrous, time-bent cowboy slept in her guest bedroom now. What could she need? "A hug?" Veronica laughed. "I'm good. Thanks for reaching out. Have a good night." Too stiff, too formal, but the tone would do the job. Create a little distance. Veronica watched the phone for a minute, waiting for the little dots to splash back saying a reply was coming, but the screen stayed clean. Another soul kept at arm's length. Her father would be proud, or maybe he'd just understand. Was this how Christopher Pline had found himself so alone? One chat at a time, pushing everyone away? Veronica slipped the phone back into her pocket, reran the morning's schedule. The senator would be at the office first thing, and over coffee they'd construct a plan for government intervention. Massive resources to bear on a badge, a hole, and a trip to another world. Might be they'd find her father over there. Might be they'd find 1,000 miracles. Either way, Lode figured it would start a fight that'd end in radical change. All these lights, the cities she'd loved since birth, would break their chains. Or the gardener, the name Lode gave the creature at the heart of all this, would burn it all away. Her phone buzzed. Veronica pulled it out. Saw a new message. "You too." "Take care, Veronica." Good advice. Late enough after a long day. She went back inside, closed the door, took a look at her father's bed in its pristine state, went to the couch, pulled the blanket up over her shoulders, and tried to slip back to a warm and fuzzy past. Chapter 3. Security Needs. For a table right out of cheeseball sci-fi flicks, the audience was too ominous. A crystalline white, big enough to seat 6 humans. The audience for Earth sat near the middle of the grove's giant courtyard. The metaphysical space, one Fade didn't understand, and Eve didn't bother explaining, seemed a little like a medieval castle floating amid infinite clouds. The grove wasn't stuffed with misplaced knights or mystical fairies, but instead with creatures that threatened to break Fade's brain. There were slap-talking blobs, 20 armed wheels, lumbering snakes with hair instead of scales, and bobbing beasts that drifted about by expelling florid gas like studded, moss-green balloons. And those were only the first few Fade and Eve walked past on their way to their audience, at an hour when Oakland's local time ticked near midnight. They'd burned clock, letting the grove's invisible miracles heal themselves up, and using the portal to dash back Earthside to grab late-night burritos and let Fade send some critical texts. Namely, telling Jaycee he wasn't going to make it back tonight. The line, the excuses, came ever easier. At first, when the kid had been younger, Fade's reliance on a babysitter cadre felt more like he'd been failing Jaycee. He'd punch a thug, drop off a secure package, or meet Thalia for a nightcap after washing the blood from his clothes and realize a pissed-off teenager, well beyond the negotiated hour, waited at home with his daughter. At least now Jaycee was older, could both take care of herself and indulge her high school experience without Fade hovering around. She probably loved it, could go to all those parties. "Ready?" Eve asked, snapping Fade back to the table before them. Its center ran a deep blue, like a sapphire ocean. If Fade set a plate on it, the surface would hold like any other table. If he gave it a question. "What just happened?" Fade asked the table. The surface shivered. How the audience parsed the real meaning of his question when the smart speakers in his house and his phone needed Fade's explicit, detailed explanation remained a vague miracle. Like everything else in the grove, it was better to assume the gardener and its infinite wisdom, technological prowess, and mystique was just beyond Fade's understanding. As long as the gardener kept the cash deposits flowing, Fade would keep on making that assumption, at least until the audience's bumbling led him too close to a bomb. The corrupt agent Fade and Eve had tracked surfaced on the table's left side in a shaded blue-white gradient. The man's name and details spilled across the rest of it, accompanied with news headlines from the bombing. More than a couple pointed out Fade and Eve as mysterious interlopers. They'd already discussed that development over dinner, and Eve dismissed it as an impossible conundrum in humanity's digital age. "Will continue to be a riddle that cannot be solved," Eve had said between scrumptious buffalo mac and cheese, made, so Fade understood, not from real stuff, but from spun proteins and minerals meant to resemble the flavor profile and crafted in the grove's phantasmal depths. The world will move on when they can't find any answers. Except I'm a real person. Someone's going to find me and Jaycee. The gardener can help us create an alibi if we need one. You'll be shown on a camera at a grocery store at the same time, or we'll get friends to declare you were at their house. Bold of you to assume I have friends." Eve had laughed. Everyone has friends if there's enough money to buy them. That sentiment, that the gardener's limitless resources removed barriers, was doubly evident with the audience. Eve asked the table, the machine, the organism. Fade wasn't sure exactly what it was, to dig in further. The corrupt agent had a buyer, a backer. Eve and Fade could agree that things like a rogue bombing didn't happen in a vacuum, and the audience swept along to show they were right. News articles disappeared, replaced with bank transfers, audio recordings of phone calls, and the agent's GPS records. The audience cracked passwords and encryptions for all these things without breaking a sweat, a demonstration of cryptographic dominance that would have made all the black hats on Earth collectively vomit. For all that data, the answer came back obvious. Fade groaned as Eve nodded. Nation-states, Eve said. For the last century, the source of humanity's greatest risks have been trending away from individuals to whole governments. She spoke like a lecturer, adopting her mentor's routine, and any interruption would only lead to a disapproving glare. The scale of devastation has increased so much. The relative risk to everyone through a nuclear-armed rogue nation is so much higher than a man with a machine gun. So we try to foil the individual actors time and time again, until, what, the bad government collapses? It's worked before. The World Wars. The Cold War. We hold the line until the rest of the world does its job. You're so bad at the heroic speeches, Eve. I need more motivation. Too bad. Eve tapped the table's railing. Who's next? The audience shivered, wiping away the agent and his nefarious employer. The table, the creature dithered for a long moment, the deep blue surface seeming to swirl. When it settled, the face resting in the middle wasn't some government ID, wasn't some hard killer or politician with a homicidal bent. It was a grinning girl, one Fade knew because he'd had to kidnap her not all that long ago. You're not serious, Fade said to the table. The audience doesn't joke, Eve replied, her voice slipping into a soft sadness. She's the next target. Veronica Pline, 18 years old, known for her wild parties and, apparently, humanity's greatest threat. Sell the unbelievable. A mantra probably uttered by charlatans and psychics for millennia, embraced by Veronica as she wound through the meeting. Lode stood at her side in the small conference room, the two of them up against a skeptical senator and a small army of aides. At every step came questions, ranging from the fair, what she was saying seemed absurd, to the patronizing. Wasn't she just 18? My father prepared all of this, Veronica said to that last, near the presentation's end. The words were acid in her mouth, but Lode had been right to suggest it. Christopher Pline, eccentric genius, bought credibility a high school girl lacked. This was all his work before he disappeared. The senator, a hungry woman with little legacy on the hunt for a splash, details that had made her the perfect target for Veronica's request, nodded. As if all the preceding talk about a hyper-intelligent, godlike alien deploying dynamic duos across the galaxy were suddenly as easy to eat as apple pie. Her entourage took on a sudden life at the gesture, aides sparking up names and ideas, parlaying political persons against one another like Veronica might have her old school's cliques, who could be counted on, who might push back, and how to swing minds to their side. Don't lose the room, Lode muttered next to her. The former Raker had shed his cowboy guise for the meeting, allowing a shave to a respectable black goatee and a bland, fitted suit. The ensemble hugged tight to a solid frame, Lode ever the model of rugged fitness, spiked with hard-eyed menace. Attack. Persuasion is only the first step, Veronica announced, drawing looks both confused and intrigued. That the latter came from the senator, glowing with ambition, gave Veronica a good push forward. Attack, indeed. When we have our support, and it's just a when, not if, the question is what to do with it. One aide, a young man who looked not a whole lot older than Veronica herself, began spouting some nonsense about committees, legislation, and found his proposal waved off before the second sentence ended. You have something in mind, the senator said, returning to Veronica. Or rather, your father had a plan. My father saw opportunity. He was right. Opportunity? Christopher Pline chased leaps, moments that could bring massive progress to humanity as a whole. If it were really her father talking, Veronica figured he would have added a bit about the massive profits those same leaps could bring. What lies beyond the badges is exactly this. Just a fraction of what's out there could remake our world. Long life, endless health, the ability to create anything regardless of raw materials. We could end every problem. Whether all of that was true didn't matter. Lode had suggested it was, and Veronica was too far down this road to falter on technicalities. The text messages flashed through. A life too far gone already. Only forward. "But this creature isn't a giving sort," the senator said, playing along, "which means you believe we need to take it." "The rules are clear. The alien intends to direct us to its desired conclusion. If we want to go our own way, it will see us destroyed." Murmurs, glances. Veronica hadn't put the threat in the presentation, kept it hopeful, intriguing. Her father had taught her that much. Get them immersed in delightful delusion, and then sprinkle in the fear to spur the action. Commit or miss out, or worse, lose what you already have. Lode, next to her, tapped his leg with his right hand. Time to push them over. "What's more," Veronica said, throwing her eyes around the room to draw everyone in, "they already know we're talking. The Rakers will be coming, and they do not take prisoners." She refocused on the senator. "We've already fired the first shot, Senator." Now it's time to win the war. She'd expected a burst of activity. Calls to the army, the FBI, or some secretive government force meant to handle extreme threats. Veronica figured she might end the day in a discussion with the heads of every nation on the planet, pushing humanity into a team effort against the Rakers, the Grove, and its gardener. "Or we make peace," the senator replied, fingers drumming on a black folio. "Your words are one thing. Your father's ideas. Perhaps we make a deal with this creature, receive its innovations, if they exist, and no bodies wind up in bags. You've said these Rakers are trying to keep us alive. Sounds to me they're not our enemies." "They are," Lode said, killing the room with confusion. "The gardener isn't interested in a deal. It believes it knows the path you ought to walk, and therefore you should step on one stone after the next in a damn perfect line. Trip, try to take your own way, and it'll see you erased. You don't make deals when the gun's to your head." "You do if you can't avoid the bullet." The senator flicked her look back to Veronica. "I thought this man was your security." "A bit more than that," Lode said, oozing that dueler's grin, ready to draw blood. "I was a Raker once. I've been behind the curtain. It's bloody there, and it's going to be bloody here soon. The gardener doesn't like being talked about, prefers pulling strings from the shadows. Like I said, the gun's at your head, boys and girls. You can't dodge the bullet, so you'd better shoot first." More looks back and forth, before the senator cleared her throat, asked the very question Veronica had been waiting for. She clicked the remote, and the screen behind her flipped to the next slide. On it sat a nice, if not very fancy house, accompanied by a grinning man at a baseball game. "This is Faden Vance," Veronica said. "If we ask nicely, he'll open the door." If the gardener and its alien super-intellect could solve traffic on the Bay Bridge, Thalia decided she'd happily take its side. After persuading Jaycee to keep up the school charade until the details could be worked out, she'd taken off to fulfill her uncle's request and earn some Navarro scratch. That meant a drive to San Francisco's downtown, a tight parking job in a garage flush with vehicles well above her pay grade, and a chilly walk to a high-rise. A coffee and donut combo made the metal detector and long elevator ride bearable, and Thalia found her spirits lifting when Navarro himself came out to greet her. The businessman, and to those who knew, resident gangster, bore the spit polish of someone who wasn't born into wealth, but scrapped their way to the top. Edges everywhere beneath piercing eyes, and a navy suit combo clean enough to have come right from the tailor. A rail-thin body seemingly always in motion. Navarro didn't lead Thalia to a corner office, but instead to a small, windowless conference room. Inside sat a table for 6, water and more coffee decorating its center. Bland cream walls throughout, and Thalia did her usual casing for obvious cameras, seeing none. "It's secure," Navarro said, alone with her, his voice shifting from the casual tour guide vibe he'd adopted as they'd walked here. Questions about her family, the weather, and her choice of donut, hazelnut, dissipated without transition, save a gesture towards a chair on the table's far side. Navarro put himself close to the door. "There are a few here that know what we're talking about, but I figured keeping the world's end a secret is the smarter move." "The world's end?" "Not what I've heard. End and destroyed aren't the same thing, Thalia." "Getting awful heady for 9 in the morning, Alec. For what I'm paying you, I'll talk however I like." The man defanged the words with a sincere smile, scratched the bottom of his nose. Old habits echoing. "I wanted to buy Fade. If your uncle hadn't intervened, then we wouldn't be here." "Sounds like he made a smart business decision." "It doesn't matter." "None of it does." Alec caught himself, shrank the smile, and held up a finger. "Now let's roll this back. There's a reason it's just you and I in this room, Thalia. I want us to trust each other, to be partners." Thalia wanted to fold her arms, put on a glower, yet held back, kept it cordial. The Grove's existence made the dutiful paying of rent, taxes, and utilities seem a bit pointless, but until society flipped to the alien utopia, she'd need to keep cash in her accounts. Besides, from this opener, Alec Navarro might not be all that far off from her own ideas. "No retort? No stormy declaration that my efforts to buy Fade have turned you away from me?" "I'm here, aren't I? Then you're open to an arrangement? You're paying my uncle and me to keep you safe." "That's the arrangement." A nod. An understanding. "Do you know what Pline's daughter has been up to?" Thalia blinked. Hadn't thought about Veronica in a while. The Plines had 0 point in their pocket. No need for her uncle's services. Sure, the dad had played with the wrong people and vanished, but bad things tended to happen to bad people. "She's in a meeting at this very moment," Alec continued. "A senator. Someone with power. She's offering even more." At Thalia's curious look, Alec laid it out. Details delivered courtesy of bewildered and worried Pline staffers, ones wondering what had become of their careers after their boss's disappearance. Putting a high school senior in charge of a massive company, even if Veronica's role was more ceremonial than crucial, shifted loyalties, created openings a few dollars could leverage. "I don't know everything she's saying yet, or what all she has," Alec concluded. "But I do know she intends to go after your friend Fade. I think you'd like to keep him safe. So would I." "Because?" Alec's shoulders sagged, his mouth relaxed, and the man exhaled like he'd never taken a fresh breath before. "I'd prefer we were honest with each other. It's good business." A nod. "Your friend is failing to keep a secret, one that will attract every person with the means to act on it. Fade will be hunted by every state, by every group. If not today, then very soon. He will not survive it, save by retreating into his hideaway." The smile returned, warm this time. "Which isn't what Fade does." "So you're saying we rescue him?" "If we don't, he dies." "So will his daughter, and so will you." Thalia chuckled, once. "Me? Who cares about me?" Alec morphed again. The guys came back, those hard eyes. In them, Thalia read a particular story, a threat and a gift. She could work with Alec to save Fade, or he would use her to get Fade for himself. The end result was the same, but she could get there alive or dead. "Next time," Thalia said, "don't play these games." "If we're being honest." Alec's smile widened, but it was far from genuine. Like Fade himself, his home seemed an accumulation of injuries and bad habits. He walked up its driveway, Eve zipping off in search of noontime tea, and measured its scraggly yard, the utter absence of greenery, and a door whose freshness and heavy bolt lock set it apart from the aged and beige building. 2 stories of minimal character. There'd been love in here, though, once. Fade entered the code above the lock, a 6-digit sequence ending with a charming beep and grind. He pushed the portal open, took in a mustiness flavored with what must have been last night's tacos. He called Jaycee's name, knowing she ought to have been in school, and listened. The silence in reply earned a frown, a sigh. Of course Jaycee would do what was right, what she should, even if it meant Fade wouldn't see her. Tonight, though, he'd be back. Veronica was a local target. No flights, no hotels. And Fade winced as he stepped through to the kitchen. No murders. He'd already made Eve agree. They'd figure out what Veronica was doing that had put her so high up on the audience's list, convince her otherwise, and move on. Whether the gardener would see things the same way didn't matter. Fade had rules, and he'd prop his crappy parenting up on a moral high ground as much as he could. What else could he offer Jaycee? A drink of water, a quick shower, and a longing look at his wife's clothes in the closet checked off Fade's requirements for the stop. Nothing else seemed amiss, pride and pain coming in equal measure at Jaycee's maturity. Fade stopped himself from descending further down that road. Jaycee should be worrying about prom and college admissions, not an alien universe. But he wouldn't change the game now. Even if Eve hadn't said it outright already, the mark had been made, and Raker's history offered only one outcome. Once you'd been to the Grove, life apart from it seemed pointless. The pitch to the gardener for his daughter would be coming soon. Eve and Fade were batting it back and forth, arguing for Jaycee's role as a handler, assistant, bit player to help them keep humanity's increasingly cataclysmic threats in line. Whether the gardener would take that logic, Fade couldn't know, but there wasn't another direction. Soon enough he'd be following Eve's lead and ditch this house, the worldly ties, and bringing Jaycee with him. As for what that'd mean for her future, Fade couldn't burn hours and whiskeys debating that. She was smart, ambitious, she'd find her way, with all the marvels of the Grove behind her. Lattes acquired. On my way back. Eve's text buzzed. Fade replied that he was ready, started to sag onto the front couch when a flash flitted against the front door. A flit, a reflection. Sunlight in the backyard bouncing off a moving something and dashing by in an instant. Fade stopped his sit halfway down, turned it into a heel slide, putting his left side towards the wall, the hallway, and the kitchen at the house's rear. To his right lay the bay window and an empty front yard. No cars on the curb, though the street held plenty. Fade wasn't around enough to recognize the regulars. But who'd be ambushing him? Or was he paranoid? Fade took 3 steps to the hallway's edge, watched the shadows against the front door. No more flashes, meaning the culprit had either been random or had stopped their movement. The stairs across the hall beckoned. Fade, like any good handler, kept various go-bags and resources scattered throughout the house. A baton good for busting kneecaps lay secured behind the couch, touching Fade's knee, for instance. Upstairs would have the knives Fade favored, gloves weighted and plated for knuckle dusting. Of course, if things grew rough, he still had the badge in his pocket. A one-way warp to safety, and an option he couldn't take. Not until the threat was neutralized, because in 2 or 3 hours Jaycee would be coming right back here. Well, Fade might not have dinner ready, but he'd damn sure give his daughter a place to drop her backpack. He quick-stepped across the hall, swinging a sharp look towards the scant backyard. A fence split the house from its neighbors, a rustic white worn down by years of haphazard care. A few boxwoods and bushes offered their services as ornaments, none large enough to serve as cover. Nothing and nobody lurked amid their tight leaves, calming Fade's heartbeat for a long moment. Until a knock hit the door. 3 raps, sharp and short. A known signal, and one Fade went to answer without hesitation. 5 knocks would have put him on alert. Instead, he pasted on a wary grin and tugged the door open, knowing Thalia would be standing on the other side. She sure was, but Fade's freeze aimed right at the man standing at her side, along with the plainclothes goons behind him. "Hello, Fade," Alec Navarro said, slick as ever, while Thalia put on an apologetic wince. "We're here to save you." Chapter 4. Schoolyard Brawl. In the first hour after the meeting, Lode sent Veronica back to the Pline mansion. He put on a set of hard body armor beneath the suit, checked his pistol and found it clean, and placed himself at the hotel's entry where 0 Point would be picking him up. They did not appear for another full 60 minutes, each and every one of which Lode counted with a growing scowl, one that kept the hotel's hapless valets at a safe distance. The senator had approved of the plan, had given Veronica her blessing, and, with it, the de facto support of the United States government. That clearance should have had Lode and a dozen heavily armed agents careening towards Fade's house, intent on delivering justice. Lode coughed. He blamed the heavy SUV pulling away from the hotel's entry, exhaust rising into the sunny, smelly Oakland air. Still infinitely easier to breathe than the coal-dusted disasters of a century ago. Nothing, though, would be as crisp as the Montana air he enjoyed as a kid, well before all this crap came his way. The injustice? Casting him out as a raker? What right did Eve have? The gardener wasn't playing it right either. Too caught up in its 1,000 other civilizations to care what happened with this one. It had learned, though, that leaving humanity to its own devices would end in its disaster. So yes, injustice. A hard punishment for a stupid move. Lode would deliver it with gusto and a hollow point if his ride ever arrived. The stewing lasted another full hour, during which Lode secured more coffee and watched the sun glide past noon. At last, an unremarkable sedan, olive green and bearing rust stains around the wheel, rolled up. The driver didn't match the vehicle, clad in dark tactical gear like some movie extra who'd driven to set in costume. "Get in," the man said, reaching over to pop the door for Lode. "The team's ready." Should have been ready an hour ago. The man's sour look, visible beneath heavy stubble and hard eyes, again confirmed how 0 Point felt about Lode's cowboy approach to, well, everything. "Not easy to assemble a strike team on short notice," the man spoke while guiding the car into traffic, wheeling towards the eastern hills. "Weapons, armor, assignments take time and approval." "It's a damn wonder you're still in business." Time was, Lode and Eve would hear from the audience, pick a target, and go. Be there in a few hours, tops, and have the skull busted shortly thereafter. Lode relayed this to the driver, amused with how often, how easily he broke the gardener's secrecy protocols. Now it was to Lode's benefit. The more people who knew, who wondered at the mysterious force operating beyond the badges, would look to Lode for answers, and he, in turn, would generously provide. "We're a security company. We don't go on offense. Any good defense starts with an attack." The man dismissed that with a laugh. "Only if you want to wind up jailed." "Never." His driver only shook a bemused head, fell silent. Lode let him. Conversation would be better with Fade anyway. Or Eve, before he put a round between their eyes. All that mattered was their badges. 0 Point wasn't all bad. They'd dispatched a couple recon nobodies to confirm Fade's house was open for assault, and those eyes had spotted fresh visitors. I dead them too, well before Lode's motley car hit the scene. Alec Navarro and Fade's associate, Thalia, accompanied by a bunch of half-assed corporate security. Nothing 0 Point couldn't handle, but after the last shootout on this block, people had hesitations. "You're not going to take them?" Lode asked the driver, who relayed the question over 0 Point's tactical band. They'd parked 2 blocks away. Fade and his new friends seemed to be getting ready to leave, with Navarro getting into an armored truck parked in the driveway. "They're right here." "Eve's not, according to recon," the driver said. "We're hoping she turns up." "We don't know where she is." "Fade's there. You're the experts. Rush them." Lode pointed out the windshield, as if the force of his index finger could compel the attack. "This is it." The driver listened for a moment, then turned to Lode and shook his head. "Mission Control is saying no. Veronica isn't authorizing what's likely going to be a mess." "Then what? We follow them?" "As best we can. We know Navarro's properties. We'll set up surveillance, see which one they go to. Take them when they're alone." Lode scratched his goatee. Delays, delays, delays. Fade had made his once-a-month visit to his house, and they were blowing it. The man might never come back now, just vanish to the Grove or set up shop somewhere new with Eve. Except, "Change of plans," Lode said. "Set up your surveillance, but you and I were going somewhere else." "What?" "Where's the closest high school?" "There's a girl I've been meaning to see." The driver frowned. "You're a creepy man, you know that?" Lode laughed. "I shot her once. She lived. Lucky for us." "That makes it worse. Good thing I don't give a crap about your opinion. Drive, now." Eve tapped her watch against the pump, heard the chirp announcing a successful payment. Money would from an account nearly 4 decades old, nearing the age at which Raker wisdom suggested cleansing most records. Eve would seek out agents specialized in fabrication, forgery, and pay them to craft fresh licenses, passports, identification. A new history would be remade from nothing, and no questions would be asked. She'd do it again soon, once Lode had been dealt with. Sliding back behind the wheel, ran her hands along the leather wrap. Before this, there'd been horses. A skill she'd ditched the last time she'd had her mind wiped. How many more times would driving be worth retaining? A Raker could serve for millennia if they took proper care of themselves. If they didn't let their brain fill up with too much, get overstuffed with trauma, difficult decisions, and useless trivia that, like a city's noise, eventually crowded out rational thought. The gardener, if asked, wouldn't hesitate to point out all the civilizations left to founder, because their Rakers had let too much knowledge fester for too long. "Simple weapons, guardrails," Eve muttered as she drove, nailed to the speed limit along side streets towards Fade's house. "Being more attracts notice, invites trouble, enjoy immortality." Lode's words, his absence echoed in the car. A gruff vigor, intent on violent ends to most problems. She could play the foil, assume she had the right posture in any fight. With Fade, things weren't so simple. He was dragging her back into real problems, a life with complications. Jaycee, a house, dreams beyond the gardener's whims. Those would change after his first wipe, after everyone he knew had aged beyond caring for, beyond connection. The musing came to a hard end as Eve turned onto Fade's street, saw the unfamiliar car in the driveway. 2 more parked nearby, too dark and clean to fit with the single-family aesthetic. An observation Eve could make because she'd learned to find the ill-fitting pieces in any puzzle. She pulled over, checked the glove compartment. Fade hated guns, but Eve had acquired one after Lode's escape. Small and light, capable of a stopping shot only up close, the weapon felt wrong in her hand. Better in the purse, Eve looped over her shoulder, one matching her black athletic outfit. Everyone assumed she was a mom going to another workout, a trend Eve thoroughly enjoyed using to her advantage. So much more comfortable, these leggings, than the dresses and tight jeans of earlier years. The car in Fade's driveway reversed as Eve took her own step out into the street. It swung into the road, faced her, and throttled ahead, slow and easy. Eve wasn't invisible, made no moves to hide. If this was some gangster from Fade's past intent on harming the fresh Raker, then they wouldn't know Eve. If it was someone else, like a Pline associate, then Eve wanted a conversation. Even a bloody one, if it came to that. The car rolled to a stop, its back set even with Eve, who kept one hand in the purse and the other loose at her side. The most important thing, her emerald badge, hung from a gold chain on her neck. The little miracle that would ghost Eve back to the grove. Provided, of course, she lived long enough to activate it. "Change of plans," Fade said, his voice matching the descending window. "We're getting an escort." "To where?" "Navarro's estate. He's not the target. Just get in, Eve." Instead, she narrowed her eyes at Fade's casual look. Beside him sat a woman Eve recognized from before. Thalia, Fade's business associate, and perhaps more, though Fade refused to elaborate on his personal life. Littered with regrets, he said, and that Eve could understand. "I don't like this." After Detroit, getting trapped with another wealthy. "Don't have a choice," Fade cut in. "It's this, or things get worse than ugly." Worse than ugly? "Eve, the world's learning we exist, that the Grove exists. We need friends, because there's a war coming." The fire alarm saved Jaycee from an ugly calculus quiz, one she'd neglected to study for last night to hang with Thalia and her compelling tacos. By the looks of her classmates, shoving tablets into backpacks amid a grateful scurry, she wasn't alone. The only annoyed one appeared to be the teacher, who grumbled directions to nobody in particular. The hallways thronged amid the banging, buzzing alarms, everyone moving in a congealed mass of tropes and cliques towards the exits. Jaycee dared to hope the afternoon was far enough gone the school would just call it game for the day, giving her a chance to give that calculus stuff a... No, that was the old her thinking. The calculus quiz didn't matter, remember? What did was Thalia's plan, was Jaycee's trap for her dad. Convince him to come round, let them into the Grove, and play partner to his eternal guardian gig. An easy way out from the grind of daily life. At least, that's how Thalia put it, and Jaycee was only too happy to go along with that idea. Her school sprawled over several buildings connected by open-air quads, paths, and fields. Pretty enough, so long as you ignored the fencing and constant police presence mandated by the world's obsession with violence. That had picked up in the day since the Detroit incident, and those same protectors now barked orders to get everyone into the main parking lot until a cause of said alarm could be found. That it wasn't a drill was surprising enough, and Jaycee scanned the crowd shuffling with her for some friends, ones who'd be happy to indulge in some good conspiracy theorizing. She didn't catch any eyes, save two. Across a grassy gap between the parking lot and the next street over. A cowboy hat, leaning against a post, though Lode wore a dark professional suit. Not that Jaycee would have missed him. That sort of evil terror had a way of drawing your gaze. Hers, anyway. Options danced. An urge to push her way over to the shepherding police and demand they figure out what Lode was up to died as soon as it arose. What rationale could she offer? A suspicious man watching a crowd emerge from the school? Jaycee could ignore Lode. Finish her immediate plan to find some friends, dish some afternoon gossip, and go her way. That, though, wouldn't get an answer to what was, now, the most pressing question. What the hell was Lode doing here, and why hadn't her father taken care of him yet? A possible answer waited as Jaycee made her way beyond the crowd to the parking lot's edge. Her look came unobstructed now, a clear shot across to the cowboy. Definitely Lode, all casual menace, who met her look with one in return, too far away to get a good gauge on an expression, but who needed one. Whatever the man's mouth said, something sinister and violent wouldn't be far beyond. Lode held up a hand. A single, lazy wave. It beckoned, like a string to fate's own trap. Jaycee found herself walking towards him, knowing it was a bad idea, hating herself for it, but also finding fresh vigor. This was it. She was making the move, going beyond late-night plans and furtive daydreams into actual progress, facing her trauma head-on and grabbing her real destiny at the same time. If anyone noticed Jaycee's march across the grass, it went without her hearing it. She wasn't the only one engaged in meandering escapades, as students and teachers around her took the chance to break for impromptu gatherings or field trips to the nearby convenience store. What school day wasn't better ended with an energy drink, a fresh vape, or party supplies for the weekend. "Glad you understood," Lode said as Jaycee reached him. "Makes things easier." "Did you pull that alarm?" "Paid a kid to do it." Lode looked over her shoulder. "Used to be. Anybody could walk in a school." "Welcome to the future." Lode growled a laugh. "Speaking of, yours is this way?" He nodded to his right, and Jaycee picked out the sedan half a block away. "Running, occupied." "Get moving." "Why? You have my dad?" "Questions get answered in the car, not before." "You're making demands?" "Of me?" Every sentence prompted queasy fear, a quiet insistence to break and run, a sensation Jaycee pushed away with a single brutal fact. Lode was her escape. She would not break this, not for anything. "Your call. We can make this rough." "Going to shoot a girl again?" "If you think that bothers me, it doesn't." "Weren't you supposed to be the savior?" Jaycee laughed once. "The gardener's a shit gauge of character." "More like a fixer," Lode replied, reached towards her shoulder, a touch Jaycee stepped back from. "Come on now, I've asked nicely." Jaycee pulled out her phone, kept her distance. "Let me call my dad before I get in a car with a strange man." "Bad idea." Jaycee punched Fade's number, put the phone up to her face, and kept backing up as Lode reached for it. The call rang once, dove to voicemail. Once again, not there when she needed him. Fine. Jaycee could handle this one on her own. Lode growled a fresh demand, and this time Jaycee answered, swung, with her left arm, a backpack loaded with a tablet, books, and binders hard into Lode's face. The cowboy swore, stumbled back, and Jaycee turned to sprint back across the grass. Distractions or no, the cops would have to notice a girl getting chased by a grown man. "Run, and he's dead!" Lode snarled at her back. "We'll kill your dad, and that woman he works with, too." Jaycee stopped, glared back Lode's way. "Do it, then." And she ran, phone again buzzing as she tried her dad. Over and over again. Fade insisted, and Navarro rallied his small convoy, the sedan, and a single unmarked SUV, to Jaycee's school. Nobody doubted any stakeout on Fade's place. Any attempt on his person could use Jaycee as a hostage. Those ideas found firmer footing when they neared the school and saw the students milling around outside, several police and fire engines around the parking lot. Confusion reigned, even from a distance, as teachers and officials huddled. "There," Thalia said, driving the sedan. Navarro sat shotgun, while Fade and Eve took the back seat. "That's her." "How'd you pick her out of that mess?" Fade asked, peering through the windshield at the crowd as the sedan rolled to a stop along a side street. "Because she's not in the mess," Navarro said. "She's running towards it." "Chased by—" Thalia's curse clued in Navarro's puzzlement, and the woman popped her door without a second thought. Fade started to ask what she was doing when he saw his daughter. Saw the shape running her down. Big hat as obvious a marker as anything. "Lode's here," Fade said, opening his own door, rising into the street. Lode would catch Jaycee in the foot race in just a few seconds, though her yelling was attracting all the attention Lode wouldn't want. Thalia had a head start, sprinting across the street on an intercept and nearly getting smacked by a minivan in the process. But Lode wouldn't be here alone. He was with Pline now, which meant there'd be other idiots around. Probably 0 Point. "Get back in the car," Navarro said, standing now outside his own door. "If they see you, we'll become the target." Fade ignored him. Eve didn't, assuring Navarro that there would be no retreat until Jaycee was safe. Navarro then pulled out his phone, started some call that'd escalate this misadventure, and Fade found his target. Another sedan? Hadn't big SUVs become too obvious for this sort of thing? Parked along the field's edge to his left. Too generic and clean to match the homes rubbing up against the school. "Eve, follow me," Fade said. "Get ready." He broke in a loping jog to the left, along the wide street running parallel to the field. Across the way, Lode had caught up with Jaycee, her yelling mixing with orders from police for Lode to let her go. Thalia closed in, her own voice telling the police not to shoot. Why wasn't he running towards his daughter? The sudden splash threw Fade's next step off, landing on the sidewalk edge as it bordered dry grass. He would have tripped, twisted an ankle if not for instinct, and that same experience torqued away the turmoil. Fade was helping Jaycee. He was dealing with the problem. Another body dashing in at Lode wouldn't make things better. Eve kept on his heels, both making the hard right as they hit the cross street at the field's end. Lode's apparent driver noticed them now. The light tint on the windshield faltered against the afternoon sun, gave Fade a good look at those eyes going wide as the driver put one and one together. "That's right," Fade muttered between breaths, traffic thankfully giving him and Eve a break on their dash. As he ran, Fade slipped his hands into his coat pockets. There were knives hidden here and there, but he went for the thick, tight gloves waiting for him. Pads along the knuckles, perfect for delivering a message without a big mess to clean up. When Fade hit the car, he scooted right, angling for the driver's door with every intent to break the window and pull the idiot on out. The interrogation would be fast, painful. Except the driver wasn't playing, wasn't running either. As Fade reached his window, the driver shoved his door open hard, whacking Fade in the stomach and driving him back along the grass. Like some feral tiger, the driver leaped from his seat, a sparking stunner in his right hand. Fade met the strike with a wrist grab, holding the assault at bay as he found his footing. Any moment, Eve would come. No. Fade saw past the driver, where Eve struggled with several new 0 Point thugs. Their SUV, at last fulfilling the trope, had screamed in near the sedan, facing the wrong way, and disgorged the new trio. Eve danced, but outnumbered. "Get off," Fade snarled as the driver punched him in the ribs, a hard hit muffled by Fade's better-than-average gear. Fade stepped back on his left, pulling the stun gun and its holding hand past him. A kick with his right foot sent the driver flailing into the dirt. A snappy follow-up laid the man out into groaning incoherence. Fade reached down, pulled the stun gun free, and broke towards Eve. 1 0 Point had her hands to her face, a broken nose spilling blood along the grass, but the other two had Eve in hand. One drove another stun gun into her neck, the Raker going limp. "Drop her, and maybe I won't kill you," Fade said, running into the group. Bloody Nose tried an intercept, pulling a taser from her belt. She brought it up to aiming level, and Fade threw the stun gun. A hard toss, accurate enough to land square in her forehead. She reeled, and Fade followed up with a passing elbow, pitching her to the dirt. The man who'd shocked Eve faced him next, his partner throwing Eve into the SUV behind him. "You're the guy," the man said, waving the stun gun in a stance that spoke of some martial arts training. "I am most definitely the guy." Fade feinted an attack, leaning to his left, and drew the expected response. The 0 Point dude probably had a counter ready, but Fade wasn't here to throw down. Instead, he broke hard right, disengaging in a wrap around towards the SUV. His opponent cursed, came at Fade's back as Fade caught up to the big white vehicle. Eve's handler was crawling in after her, an attempt Fade halted by grabbing the man's back and bracing, throwing the bigger man out and behind him, right into the oncoming dude with the stun gun. In a moment right out of some bad action flick, the pair hit the ground. 2 for 1. Fade turned back to the door, to Eve, and the SUV roared to life. Wheels squealed and Fade jumped back, escaping a likely foot flattening. Taking a piece of the sedan's front fender with it, the SUV shot down the side street, swerving away as police sirens overtook the sounds of scuffling. Fade whirled towards his idiot pair, meaning to ask them a few pointed questions, and found the trio breaking towards the damaged sedan. "No," Fade said, heading to cut them off. "You don't get to run." A bold statement, and one that ran headlong into Bloody Nose's taser. She fired on the run, a wild attempt that would have failed if Fade had been more than a couple meters away. The little diodes stuck his face, his exposed neck, and dropped the Raker. Spastic pain threatened to turn Fade's day dark, but he fought through it, 1 second at a time. Less endurance and more technique, divorcing himself from the moment and living in the pure rage at having lost Eve, at seeing his daughter attacked. But staving off a blackout and getting to his feet were two very different things. Fade saw the sedan peel away, a fast turn he could do nothing about, save curse and swear some sort of vengeance. "Calm down," said Navarro's voice a minute later, his hand on Fade's back. "We'll get her back." The man didn't have to elaborate. When, with his help, Fade stood up, he saw who'd taken Eve's place in the sedan. One smug cowboy, with a smile Fade would very, very much enjoy wiping away. Chapter 5. Power Plays. Thalia had to give Navarro credit. The man had game. While the rest of them were trying to rescue Jaycee and get Lode subdued, Navarro had lawyers on the phone, had connections within the Oakland PD, reorienting any pursuit after 0 Point and the Plines. "Annoy and delay," Navarro said as he finished the explanation, the 4 of them in the back of a larger SUV. The sedan they'd ridden to the school had been ditched in favor of more room and more security. Thalia and Navarro sat in the middle row, Fade and Jaycee behind them. 2 security pros drove and sat up front, while Lode, cuffed and guarded, rode in the sedan behind them. Navarro's chatter was a welcome barrier to the eavesdropping Thalia would otherwise be doing, as Fade and Jaycee dished a father-daughter dilemma, ranging in tone from murder-you anger to confessions of undying parental affection. "What matters is that they'll have to hide Eve, and do it fast," Navarro continued. "They'll need to bribe or throw someone to the police, all of which will keep them off the important piece." "The badge?" "Exactly?" Navarro didn't look at Thalia as he spoke, his eyes angling between the 2 front seats and seeming to see nothing. "But our own timelines changed." "Thought it was pretty rapid already?" "Discovery, yes. A trip with Fade to the Grove, a chance to see whether all this is as miraculous as we hope. That's no longer the extent." "Extent? You were never stopping with just a taste." "A confirmation, then a plan. Proof of return on investment. Despite what you're seeing here, I'm not a government, Thalia. I don't make moves unless they're going to increase my bottom line or those of my investors." Eve's capture changes that rational. Navarro's right fist clenched twice before resettling on his thigh. What was prospective is now defensive. Regardless of whether the Grove is useful to us, we have to establish some control. Thalia laughed. Control over a domain run by an interstellar god? We don't need to take it from them if they really exist. We do, though, need to ensure we control access. Again, you're losing your mind if you think this is something you can do. We, not me. We have to, Thalia. Why's that? Because if we don't, Plan will. And Veronica Pline isn't motivated by money like me. She's like the cowboy. She wants revenge. A war against the Grove? Sounded like a terrible idea. One Thalia would have loved to send to the trash. Modern times, though, had convinced her of something else entirely. People would attempt the impossible with the right reason, and vengeance was up there. Veronica Pline might scour the Grove in search of her father, and with it, damn humanity to premature annihilation. She twisted in her seat, looked back to see Jaycee staring out the back window, arms folded. A classic huff. Fade met her look with a shrug, rolling eyes. A dad well out of his depth. What she was about to say, at least, would put Fade right at home. She'd planned for a dull afternoon. Meetings made for a CEO, going over things Veronica had neither the expertise nor confidence to direct, in which she'd duly agree with the division leads on whatever they thought was best. It felt a little like, Veronica imagined, being a queen. Just say yes, and if something goes wrong, place the blame on the underling. Veronica might not get to lop off heads, but a brutal firing seemed almost as effective. When the call came in rescuing her from the bureaucratic drudgery, Veronica leapt from her padded conference room chair. She begged off an emergency, delegated authority, and dashed from the sleepy suits, who, by their half-hidden smiles, were happy to dodge the ponderous presentations they'd prepared. 0 Point relayed the details, starting with Eve's capture and subsequent shift from one car to another in a speed alley swap. A bit of subterfuge necessitated to throw persistent police off their game. Apparently 0 Point's leverage was being outmatched by an unknown adversary, the same one who'd shown up at Fade's house earlier that day. There'd be time to dig into who that was and bring them down. Veronica kept her attention on the prize. Eve, the other figure in the mysterious photo from the Detroit bombing. Another Raker. Another doorway. She wanted to demand the woman be brought right to this office in bustling San Francisco's downtown, but that would be stupid. Would be rash. The sort of thing a teenager might do. Take her to my father's compound, Veronica said. Keep her sedated. If you can find the badge on her person, remove it. That had already been done, the artifact secured and sealed in a locked box riding with them. There'd be no sudden, impossible escape this time. Veronica cut the call, making her way as fast as idiotic heels would allow up to her own office. A quick word cleared her afternoon. A second held all calls except those coming from 0 Point. She'd be left alone, able to, with a view overlooking the resplendent afternoon bay, make the most important call of her life. When the senator answered, Veronica provided the details and made the demand. Like her, the senator knew opportunity and pounced. She wouldn't be the only one arriving at her compound that night. The Grove would get its first taste of human power. The idea, invading that strange place, flitted a worry. Most of her high school history classes had emphasized how wanton assault went poorly for the conquerors, or inflicted untold abuse on their targets. Nobody won, save those at the very top. She'd already lost one man, though Lode was expendable. Without a badge, the cowboy didn't offer much. How effective would a pistol and Old West moxie really be attacking the Grove? And Veronica would be happy to let him rot with his captors. In fact, she already felt better without his glower, his unspoken threats as he loomed around her. No, while they'd failed to capture Fade, the day had turned out just as well. Hopefully, the night would be even better. Blood tasted the same over the years. A hint of iron, sticky and warm. Eve ran her tongue across her perfect teeth, the enamel repaired and replaced by the Grove's endless enhancements. Her new teeth, her old blood, two grounding pieces in the dark room. Plastic bound her hands behind her back, a hard chair serving to seat her sore body. Her coat was gone. She wore just a thin shirt and those leggings, all of it saturated by a bright lamp. If there were windows, Eve couldn't see any. The air smelled like chemical cleaner, and modern industries churning air conditioning rumbled in the background. She waited. The last time, it had been a grumbling Soviet commissar, chewing a cigar and demanding to know what Eve had done to cause Chernobyl. The answer there had been nothing, just a failure on her and Lode's part to stop the disaster. He'd ordered her shot, and Lode had slipped between the sentence and the execution to whisk her away. Or a U.S. military policeman in the aftermath of Pearl Harbor, when Eve and Lode had fished a few crucial sailors from the sea, saving what lives they could. Caught without identification, thrown into a brig, and then ordered to divulge who, what they were. Eve twisted tongues, earned their badges back. Then, when backs were turned, shifted away to the grove. The badge, too, was gone. The brooch ripped away. Pline wouldn't be giving it back, either, putting escape away from Eve's magic and into her might, her mind, instead. "Don't look so downcast," Veronica said, her voice emerging from behind the blinding light. "This is possibility, not prison." Eve hadn't heard her enter. Perhaps Veronica had been there this whole time, just watching the Raker until the right moment arrived to... What? Persuade Eve to jump to another cause? "The only possibility here is an end," Eve replied. "The gardener doesn't negotiate, Veronica. It doesn't care. I do. And I have friends now. Powerful ones. Nothing you have, nothing humanity has, can do a damn thing to the gardener." Eve spat the words towards the light, unsure where her target lay. Aggression only went halfway, served to build a wall. Eve needed to find a connection, too. "You won't get your father back this way." "He's gone, Veronica." "You don't know that? If your grove has all this magical power, then he might be waiting in there. Lost. Because death is death. He made the wrong choice and paid for it. Don't do the same thing." "You have no idea what—" An argument bled in from outside, cluing Eve to the door's location. Straight ahead, and the shouting suggested the new players weren't exactly friends. Eve tested her binds, no slack, no range. She wouldn't be freeing herself from this. But perhaps the new arrivals offered a chance. "Who are you?" Veronica asked, out of sight behind the light. "Ezra Tover," came the reply, hard and rasped. "Special agent for a department you don't need to know about. Your conversation this morning put me on a plane, and your actions this afternoon brought me here." Ezra sounded anything but annoyed. Confidence and authority were a powerful cocktail, and this guy had drunk deep. "That doesn't tell me anything," Veronica replied. "This is my facility, and she's my—" "She's your what?" "Last I checked, this country doesn't allow illegal kidnapping of anyone. She seems bound and hurt. Assault too, then." Eve almost smiled. If only she could have seen Veronica's simmer, as the young woman said nothing to Ezra's words. "If you want to keep yourself and your dad's company free, you'll walk out this door and keep on going. Your country is grateful for your help, but your part in this adventure is over." "That's not the deal we made." Veronica found her voice as more bodies came into the room, shoes scuffing on the clean cement floor. "This was supposed to be done together." "Take that up with the senator if you wish. For now, get gone." Veronica spat a curse, left. "Oh," Ezra said to her back, "if you would please bring the badge to me." Can't have powerful technology in the wrong hands. What Veronica didn't make its way to Eve. Instead, the light shifted, the bright bulb angling to the left and giving Eve's eyes a rest. They found several silhouettes, the first resolving into a short, thin man in a dirty gray suit. A tie left askew bobbed as the man squatted before her, revealing a face weathered with hard living. Ezra's breath came with a menthol's minty flavor, the man saying nothing as he looked her over. "For all the years we've tried to catch you," Ezra said. "For all the years the world's tried to snare you and your friends, it's her that gets you first." Eve met his gaze, said nothing. "We've known about you for more than 100 years now," Ezra continued. "Strange interlopers in history, appearing and vanishing after a death, a life saved, or mysterious knowledge arrives right where it's needed. Luck to a casual observer. What do you want?" "To pull the strings," Ezra stood, stared down at her. "I'm glad she didn't kill you." "There's not much time left." "For what?" "Me. Can you imagine dedicating your life to something, only to die before seeing it through?" Ezra coughed, once, into his hand. "But maybe you do understand. How many years, how many more millennia would you be watching over us?" "As long as it takes." "Then take a breath, Eve. Because your watch is ended. Open the door, and everything you've been waiting for will happen. You'll destroy everything and everyone." Ezra tilted his head, then squatted again. "If what we think is true, this grove has cures for every disease. For old age, ways to make unlimited food and water. At a stroke, all of our problems would disappear. Isn't that worth it? Wouldn't you wager all of our pain, suffering, and death against this chance?" Eve met those hard eyes, tasted, again, her own sweet red iron. "It's not a wager. It's a damnation. Dockyards, industry, oil." Lode absorbed the busy afternoon with a proverbial gun to his head. The two men behind him each had one, kept the requisite remove to keep any fancy tricks from leaving them disarmed, and let the cowboy take in the Golden Gate at distance. Seagulls provided the soundscape, at least until another car pulled up into the narrow gravel split between containers and cranes. "I let them go," Alec Navarro announced as he came up beside Lode. "Off to the grove." "My people are packing up Fade's house, stuffing anything of value into bags that'll go into storage. We'll buy his house, erase his footprint. Was that what happened to you?" "Nobody gave a damn back then." Lode threw a side-eyed glance Navarro's way. "Most still don't." "That's where you're wrong. At least today, you have some powerful friends. One wants very much to get you back." Navarro kept his hands in his pockets, eyes straight. "Veronica Pline called, which is why you're not dead yet." That promise had been made in the car courtesy of a Navarro lackey. Lode rendered worm food, while the trio, Jaycee included, would get an escape to the grove. Pave the way for Navarro to follow, reap the rewards of a joint effort doomed to failure. "She knows better than you," Lode said. "The gardener doesn't make deals. It'll scour this world and start again before seeing us as equals." Fade didn't seem to think so. "Fade doesn't know shit." Alec nodded. "But you do, and you're prepared to act on it." "What did Veronica say that kept me alive?" "That other people, powerful people, are getting involved. We might be losing control. You're going to keep that from happening." "Am I?" "I suspect you're right. Despite their promises, Fade and Thalia might not come through. I propose emerging. Veronica and I, our people, with your expertise." "Who's the new player?" "You already know." Lode chuckled. "Government's fast when there's a juicy prize. You think your little groups can hold up against that, and the Grove?" "Tell me, Lode. What will the gardener respect more? We stop the attack or help its Rakers repel it?" "Neither. Our tickets punched the minute you dumb bastards breached the Grove. That was always the game." "Not what you told Veronica?" "No, I told her we could find her dad." Lode turned a fizzle glare at Navarro. At the same time, I'd take care of the gardener. Now it was Alex's turn to chuckle. You called it a god. How does one destroy divinity? Never give up leverage, Navarro. Thought you knew that. Lode reached up, tapped his own temple. But I'll promise you this. Get me back there, and I'll make sure you get all the toys. Why should I believe you? Doesn't matter. The gardener's not a god, it's a monster. You want to stay alive? Your only chance is right here. For all its recuperative powers, coffee paled in comparison with the grove. After his second breath within the whitewashed stone tower, Fade found his exhaustion fading. He stretched, said goodbye to the wears and tears of normal human life, and took in his daughter playing tour guide to a nonplussed Thalia. You always start here, Jaycee said, answering Thalia's question about why, exactly, the badge had brought them to this strange little room. I think every species has their own entry, unique to them and all that. And all that, right. Thalia looked down at herself, frowning. Feels funny here. It's your body being optimized. Little robots in the air. You breathe them in, and they tune you up. As if giving an example, Jaycee took a ridiculously deep inhale. It's the best. Maybe it was. Fade watched his daughter, an easy smile replacing worried lines, the grimaces and sighs that had dominated their interactions since Fade had adopted the Rakers' guise. A stressed-out kid feeling at home in an alien world? What kind of dad had Fade been? Hey, Fade said, interrupting Jaycee's continued speculation on the various health benefits of the Grove's nanobots. Before we leave this room, we need a plan. The gardener doesn't like visitors, Jaycee said to Thalia's continued confusion. It's pretty set on its rules. Which means what? Annihilation, exile, all sorts of fun things. You don't seem worried? That's because Jaycee's not going to get caught, Fade said, nodding towards the single-door exit. The gardener's usually contemplating the cosmos, or maybe playing stupid games on its insanely high-tech phone. Unless something's going wrong, it's not going to get its nose in our business. Does it even have a nose? Jaycee asked. My guess, it has whatever the hell it wants. The ringed balcony blew Thalia's mind a second time. She required another Jaycee-delivered explanation of just why they were diving over the ledge to head down. Nobody quite knew. You just did it. Even so, Thalia didn't approach the waist-high ring until Fade stepped up, threw her a wink, and jumped. The plummet towards the creamy disk and its arresting waves came and went with stomach-churning speed. Fade had grown so used to it now that he just shut his eyes, let the sensation roll over him. A meditative moment shattered by Jaycee's wild squeal at the same. Thankfully, the Grove's extraterrestrial occupants weren't meandering through. Quiet, kid, Fade said, brushing his clothes straight after the magic science stopped his fall and tilted him off to the side. I get you're finally where you want to be, but play it cool. Pretty sure I've never done that in my life, Dad. Obviously. Explains why you're never invited to parties. Didn't you find me at one just a little bit ago? Pity invites don't count. Fade grinned. Jaycee punched him in the shoulder, and Thalia, flailing, bounced to a stop behind them. Streaming curses, Fade's friend flounced off the disc and gave them a wide-eyed glare. That wasn't fair, Thalia snarled, trying to find her composure. What crazy thing designs that as an entrance? Who knows, Fade replied. Maybe the gardener's species love to fall. Maybe it hates elevators and stairs. Or maybe it's just crazy. Could be, Jaycee added. Ever think about that, Dad? Maybe you're doing the wild bidding of an insane alien monster? Fade shrugged. The check's clear, so I'm happy. Come on. While Fade tried his best to ignore the white stone tower and its implications for the galaxy, did every alien civilization at some point create towers like this, thus making it a familiar entry point? It was hard to treat what lay beyond with the same blissful ignorance. How exactly the gardener created the pocket of space-time inhabited by the Rakers was a mystery Fade figured he'd never solve. But venturing from that question to how it arrived at a vast slate expanse coated with audience tables of various sizes was a trip Fade wanted to make someday. A wide staircase, with steps longer than a human stride, walked them down to the grove proper, where the rectangular stones extended off in every direction to a milky, eternal horizon. "Stare at it too long and you'll get dizzy," Jaycee told Thalia, whose mouth had yet to close. If the horizon offered impossible distance, closer moved shapes of equal implausibility. Hulking masses and small, skittering blobs maneuvered around each other. A plant-like being several stories tall thumped towards a table raised to match, while a band of flickering light flounced like a slinky towards an audience no taller than Fade's ankle. Conversation in accents matching and far afield from any heard on Earth filled the artificial air. Should Fade choose to listen, the grove's endless miracles would ensure each and every one came through clear. A spy's dream, and one rendered harmless by the common destiny of everyone here. Get your species to the gardener's level, or die trying. The only other landmark sat beyond the table rows. A silver metal ring, more than twice as big around as Fade was tall, floated from the ground. The silver rings making up the portal could stretch as far as a species needed, but now they sat in a tight curl. Bland, inert, no Rakers traveling back home. The gardener, too, was gone. Maybe watching bad movies or eating a pint of alien ice cream. Fade, Jaycee, and Thalia made their way to the humans' audience, a table set to the tower's left. The soft sapphire surface rippled as Fade rested his hands on the rim, gauging his appetite, before asking for an espresso. "Espresso?" Thalia echoed, her head on a swivel at all the odd creatures around them, not a one of which took any notice of her. "Where are you?" The table rippled near Fade's hand before, emerging like some burbling treasure from the deep, came a steaming ceramic glass with the delicious, bitter drink. "You want my guess?" Fade said. "There's a slew of molecules underneath, and it blends them to make whatever you need." "But not everything," Jaycee added, then asked the audience for a particular soda brand. The table didn't ripple, didn't respond. "Generics only, and old ones, like humanity's big highlights, not the viral hits." "I couldn't tell you what's viral," Thalia muttered, continuing to look around. "This is a lot, Fade. I know you've told me all about this place, but it's both less and so much more than I imagined. You'll learn to ignore most of it eventually." Fade turned back to the audience. "We're not staying here long anyway." "Audience, where's Eve?" The audience followed that command quick, the table rippling farther to show Fade's fellow Raker. Not a live camera feed or some mystical hologram, but a marked location based on her badge. A dingy storage facility outside Oakland, registered to some random shadow company. That was the good part. The bad came when the audience failed to get a read on Eve's vitals. "You don't look happy," Thalia said. "If we're not getting her heartbeat, it means they took her badge. If they took her badge, they're going to try and use it." Fade drummed his fingers on the table's edge. "Thalia, if Veronica sends her idiot security forces in here, we won't be able to hide it. The gardener's going to get mad. Which means we're dead. If there's one thing all those old myths have in common, things don't go well when a god gets angry."